one question from somewhere else in the world. The Middle East. There have been reports that Hamas has formalized a list of initial hostages to be released. Brett McKirk is in the region. Do you think now we are closer to a ceasefire deal? Thank you.
I've always said from this platform that war criminal Antony Blinken had a huge role to play in the ongoing Israeli genocide in Gaza. This thug has always made it clear through his words and actions, or should I say lack of action, that he simply did not care about the mass murder of Palestinians by his fellow Israeli terrorists. Why would he? After all, he has been a leading figure in supplying billions of dollars worth of deadly weapons to Israel to commit crimes against humanity against Palestinians. You may have fallen for his claims that he was a diplomat, but I have always believed that this guy wouldn't even qualify for a cleaner's job based on his existing talent. Only in America a crook like Blinken will get elected to the Congress before being appointed the de facto president of the US. Yes, I have reasons to believe that it's him who has been running the government in the US after Joe Biden became brain dead midway through his presidency. Today, this man was in South Korea, enjoying his last paid holiday before the new administration comes to power under Donald Trump on the 20th of January. What he said in response to a question on the latest offer by Hamas on the release of hostages conclusively proves that this man and his fellow Israeli terrorists have never wanted a ceasefire deal in Gaza. So here's what happened. News agency AFP on Sunday reported that Hamas was ready to release 34 hostages as part of a ceasefire deal with Israel. The news agency further added that Hamas had approved the release of the hostages as part of the first phase of a prisoner exchange deal. According to the report, the initial swap would include all women, children, elderly people, and sick captives being held in Gaza. One unnamed Hamas official, as reported by AFP, said, and I quote, "Hamas has agreed to release 34 prisoners, whether alive or dead. However, the group needs a week of calm to communicate with the captors and identify those who are alive and those who are dead." End of quote. News agency Reuters reported that the ceasefire deal would depend on Israel agreeing to a permanent ceasefire and its withdrawal from Gaza. Now, this was the background when an AFP reporter asked Blinken a pointed question in South Korea about his response and whether a ceasefire deal was now imminent. This question is important. Why? Because that's what war criminal Blinken and his boss Joe Biden always said, that release the hostages and the US will flood Gaza with aid material, making it clear that the US was deliberately starving Palestinians to death.
Now, after intensive diplomacy carried out by my team and my many conversations with leaders of Israel, Qatar, and Egypt, and other Middle Eastern countries, Israel has offered a comprehensive new proposal. It's a roadmap to an enduring ceasefire and the release of all hostages. This proposal has been transmitted by Qatar to Hamas. Today, I want to lay out its terms for the American citizens and for the world. This new proposal has 3 phases. The first phase would last for 6 weeks. Here's what it would include: a full and complete ceasefire, a withdrawal of Israeli forces from all populated areas of Gaza, release of a number of hostages, including women, the elderly, the wounded, in exchange for release of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. There are American hostages who would be released at this stage, and we want them home. Additional, some remains of hostages who have been killed would be returned to their families, bringing some degree of closure to that terrible grief. Palestinians, civilians, would return to their homes and neighborhoods in all areas of Gaza, including in the north. Humanitarian assistance would surge, with 600 trucks carrying aid into Gaza every single day.
Instead of replying to the reporter's pointed question, This war criminal rambled on about everything but refused to answer the basic question. He even astonishingly said that the next Trump administration will work on a ceasefire deal based on the formula announced by Joe Biden. Really? Does he think that people are fools who will believe whatever garbage he utters?
One question from somewhere else in the world. The Middle East. There have been reports that Hamas has formalized a list of initial hostages to be released. Brett McCurk is in the region. Do you think now we are closer to a ceasefire deal? Thank you.
With regard to the Middle East, and in particular the ceasefire negotiations, as you know, and as we've talked about many times, we've been working intensely to bring this agreement, to bring this plan that President Biden put forward back in May, and that the entire world got behind, country after country standing up, supporting the proposal that President Biden put forward. The UN Security Council voting 14 to nothing in favor of it. We're working very hard to bring that over the finish line. And what we've seen in the last couple of weeks is a re-intensified engagement, including by Hamas, but we have yet to see agreement on the final points. So what I can tell you is this. We very much want to bring this over the finish line in the next 2 weeks, the time that we have remaining. And we will work every minute of every day of those 2 weeks to try to get that to happen. If we don't get it across the finish line in the next 2 weeks, I'm confident that it will get to completion at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later. And when it does, it will be on the basis of the plan that President Biden put forward and that virtually the entire world supports. We need Hamas to make the final necessary decisions to complete the agreement and to fundamentally change the circumstance for the hostages, getting them out, for people in Gaza, bringing them relief, and for the region as a whole, creating an opportunity to actually move forward to something better, more secure for everyone involved.
He gave the timeline of the ceasefire negotiations, as if we didn't know that. He ended his nonsense by stating that Hamas needed to release the hostages to achieve a ceasefire, as if Israel didn't have any responsibility. That's precisely what the reporter's question was. Hamas has already made an offer. Now what? Why did he evade that question? Why did this war criminal not say if his terrorist friends in Israel would now reciprocate and stop their genocidal mission in Gaza? This clearly shows that this war criminal was never serious about peace in the Middle East. He visited the region over a dozen times in the last 15 months to enjoy the hospitality of his Arab slaves. Yes, you heard it right. Most Arab rulers are spineless slaves of the West and Israel. I've highlighted the direct participation of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt and Jordan in the Israeli genocide of Palestinians in my previous videos on countless occasions. Anyway, it will be a travesty of justice if this war criminal is not punished for sponsoring a genocide of hundreds of thousands of people in Gaza, the occupied West Bank and Lebanon. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.